Good evening and welcome to Boise State in the Community. I'm your host, Chloe Scott, and I, along with my peers, get the opportunity to take part in this service learning course, where we get the chance to gain hands-on experience learning the basics of studio television production, while also gaining the opportunity to interview esteemed faculty and staff around campus that are creating dynamic opportunities for students to bring together not just their fields, but their passions and their commitment to our communities locally as well as globally. Tonight we have two doctors in our midst, Dr. JoAnn Lighty, Dean of College of Engineering, and we also have Dr. Gonzalo Bruce, who is the Assistant Provost for the Center of Global Education. How are you both tonight? Thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're happy to be here.
Thank you, definitely. So I want to dive right in. 2017 was a big year for the two of you. Can you explain that to me?
Well, I came from the National Science Foundation in July of 2017 to be dean here at Boise State. I'd spent most of my academic career at the University of Utah. By training, I'm a chemical engineer, so I've been an engineer for a long time, and just really was excited about the opportunity to come to Boise State and do transdisciplinary research and to really look at engineering education in a different way. And part of that is the opportunities to partner with people like Gonzalo.
Definitely. And Gonzalo, can you tell me a little bit more about why 2017 was such an important year for you?
I came to Boise State. I've had a career in international education all my life, pretty much. And after 7 years in Kansas, I moved to Boise, Idaho, to continue my career as assistant provost for the Center for Global Education. At that time, the university was creating the Center for Global Education, so I thought it was a very exciting project.
Definitely. It sounds like the two of you joined our family at Boise State at a pretty significant transitional moment in your individual careers. Can you tell me a little bit about what influenced that change specifically?
Particularly for me, I was very excited for the project of creating the Center for Global Education. At that time, Boise State had just been nominated a research university, and for me, it was a very exciting opportunity to start helping the academic programs, the colleges, or infusing more global perspectives into the teaching, also into the fabric of Boise State.
Definitely. And can you, so what services exactly are offered through the Center for Global Education?
Center for Global Education is comprised of international admissions, international student services, a study abroad program that we call Global Learning Opportunities, the International Scholar Program, so all the faculty and visiting scholars that come from abroad are, we partner with the academic programs to bring them, and the intensive English program, as well as everything related to partnership development with foreign universities.
Interesting. So your center is essentially the hub for all global activity in and around campus.
Yep.
Very interesting. And kind of to that approach of kind of interdisciplinary and kind of really tapping into these global opportunities that might not necessarily be in our back door, what really inspired you to kind of develop that approach?
So we don't have a discipline. We are central administration for Boise State. We work with the departments and collaborating with programs that have some or a lot of dimensions in international education.
Gotcha. Okay, so this partnership between the two of you allows you to kind of bring the best of both worlds together. You have the Dean of the College of Engineering, and you also have your position over the Center of Global Education. So I guess my question is more targeted toward you. How does the whole idea of an interdisciplinary approach affect the way that you have kind of created this program for students?
So I think it's, first of all, really important to go back to about 2004. The National Academy of Engineering had a very distinguished panel of experts who worked on a report that's called the Engineer of 2020. And we're very close to being 2020.
We are.
So the question is, have we done anything that the report actually said to do?
Yes.
And the two things I really picked out of that report in terms of looking at where our students really need to be the next engineer, to be ahead of the game, are two really important aspects. One is creativity, and the second one is globalization. So first of all, I think maybe some of your viewers might not view engineering as particularly creative, but it's really a place where people need to solve problems. And those problems can't be solved in silos, and they have to be solved by interdisciplinary, or even, I call it transdisciplinary groups that are involved in the thought process of how to solve together. And so that's one of the really interesting aspects of what we've been trying to do together. The second, obviously, is globalization. And to really kind of pick this thoughts process apart, I went to my industrial advisory board, and one of the former executives of Micron talked to the group about globalization. And if you think of Micron as a company, if you've been here long enough, it started as a Boise-based company and is now a global company. And that's really important for my students and for the students in engineering and computer science to understand the aspects of globalization in terms of culture, as well as business, as well as engineering, to really be able to be prepared to enter a global economy.
Definitely. So it sounds like this program is more not just to allow engineering students with the opportunity to kind of beef up their resume and travel to other places, but it's also about the relationships that we are able to cultivate in that time and the future trajectory of those relationships. Speaking of relationships, you guys had a number of organizations that you worked with to kind of get the groundwork going for making this program a possible reality for students. Can you tell me about some of those organizations?
So I'll tell you about the organizations. I will tell you a little bit about before. JoAnn and I were traveling in China, and we were, in the evenings, we were talking about the limitations of engineering students to actually go abroad. And then JoAnn was presenting in front of a panel of scholars from Chinese universities about the wicked problems of the future, these problems that are very complicated to solve. So that stayed with me, and I thought, how about if we create a program that is related to these wicked problems, and we just have it a component with, some global perspectives. So we found an opportunity with the 100,000 strong in the Americas that is housed with the partners in the Americas. That's an organization. Funded by the MedLife Foundation, and they had an opportunity to receive a grant from any university in the United States. It had to comply with several profiles. One was it needed to be innovative, it needed to attract students of underprivileged background, and diversity was a very strong component of that, but it needed to also promote mobility between countries in the Americas, the United States, and in that call there were 3 countries in the Americas, and one of them was Colombia. So that's how we started to think about this idea, and then we got the grant.
We got the grant.
You did, yay! And I think one of the lovely things about the programs in general are that they allow this opportunity for us to like come together and really, just attack these global problems that we all face. Speaking of problems, that I feel like that is directly tied into the approach to learning, that this program is an example of kind of gearing students to like have that mindset. Can you tell me more about that?
So I'll follow up with Gonzalo's thought process around wicked problems. And so the idea of a wicked problem is that it's a problem that generates more problems, more questions. And so it's very complex. It also requires lots of people to be working together, perhaps from different areas, usually from different areas. If you're thinking about it in a class, if you present a wicked problem, it's one that's really student-driven, not necessarily instructor-driven. And so one of the things I came to Boise State to do was to have more of these wicked problems design processes where students are really interacting with each other and the professor is there to help them along. And as Gonzalo mentioned, he took a hold of that idea. And that's part of the process for the Colombian class that we're doing. So the class is called Global Perspectives in Engineering, and part of it is to go to Colombia, and we'll talk a little bit more about sort of the whole scheduling, but the other part is that we'll get these problems from companies in Colombia, which students there as well as here can solve, and they'll come back and look at how to solve those. And also the really interesting perspective that we're hoping to achieve is that the problems can be solved in many ways, obviously, but how might they be solved differently in Boise versus Bogota, Colombia?
Definitely. I think one of the very key and kind of critical things about your program is that it allows engineering majors beyond just like their education to kind of start in terms of their career and get that experience before they've even graduated. And kind of picking off of what you were saying about this whole idea of wicked problems is that companies like Micron, like they are looking for the next classes of engineers to be able to go into the corporate environment and already have these skills intact that this program is equipping students with, which is amazing, definitely.
So I think the other thing that is interesting about this program is many times there's a lot of limitations as an engineering student to doing something abroad because it's a pretty packed schedule. It's a pretty, you take this, then you take that, and is that class going to count? Is it not going to count? And so by having this class be sort of this problem-solving, design-based opportunity, departments and students in those departments are willing to give them some credit toward special topics or design and things like that. And so it's definitely something they can get credit for, which is really important if students are going to go and do something for a week and then be in a class. And so what does it count toward? That's, you'll hear a lot of engineers say, well, I'm not sure it will count toward anything, and I'm not sure about how that's going to hurt my graduation. And so they tend to not get involved in these study abroad and different opportunities because of that.
Yeah, speaking of academic boundaries to participation in the Columbia Exchange Program, can you elaborate a little more on that?
So since it is a class, and like I said, some of the boundaries around engineering students is just, there's a lot of credit hours. There are a lot of prerequisites sometimes to get from here to there, and if you miss a prerequisite, it could delay your graduation, not only a semester, but also an entire year. And so students sometimes don't have that flexibility. The second thing I think that is really exciting about this program in particular is just the opportunity for students to actually go abroad, and that might not even be in somebody's thought process about how do I pay for this, how much time am I going to be away, and so the class itself is a combination of an actual 1-week visit as well as then kind of a Skype and connection through virtual connections versus on-site connections. And maybe you can talk a little bit more about the scholarships available.
Yeah. I just want to add a little bit about, we don't know where our students are going to work. And several engineers end up working in projects or companies that have a global focus. There's a lot of literature about professionals who go and they have the right, technical skills, but they don't have the soft skills about, how to work in a multicultural environment, the intercultural communication. This is a glimpse of that. This is an opportunity to start thinking about, how technical problems have other dimensions that are beyond the technical, social, political, economical, that, may not be the reality of the United States, but they might be confronted with this reality whenever they're in the real world, And Boise State is very committed to the Beyond in the Major kind of like project, and we want to kind of like align these projects with that initiative of Boise State. In terms of the length of the program is going to be 1 week in Colombia. They come back to Boise State, and they were going to be enrolled for a class throughout the whole semester, and they're going to start solving these problems during 1 semester course. In Colombia, they're going to get a bit of lectures on social, economic, political dimensions of the country, and then they're going to visit really very great companies, and they're going to hopefully get the question or the problem from these companies, and they're going to start thinking and elaborating more, when they come back.
Definitely. I want to hear more about the program and the process that it took you to get to this point. Unfortunately, we have to go to a break. Please stay tuned. My name is Chloe Scott. You're watching Boise State in the Community. Stay tuned to find out how you can take advantage of the Columbia Exchange program. Thank you.
Looking at the big blue sky, thinking whether you and I will ever fall in love. I know for me, it'll be so.
back to Boise State in the Community. I'm your host, Chloe Scott, and tonight I've gotten the opportunity to interview two dynamic doctors on campus that have come together in an unlikely way to create a great opportunity for students at Boise State, the Columbia Exchange Program. Now, Dr. Bruce, before the break we were talking about different kinds of boundaries that kind of prevent students from getting involved in this. Can you elaborate more on that for me?
Yeah, so, in the United States, about, in the universe of students who study abroad, that's a very small proportion of US students in colleges right now. So about 2 to 5% of students actually do study abroad. Within that population that is already small, the smallest group are students from engineering. Very difficult for them to study abroad because of how tight the curriculum is. Sometimes if you go abroad for one semester, you pretty much delay your graduation, and that's really a problem for our students. The other problem is that sometimes, for short-term programs, they have to compete, study abroad or do an internship that is paid, so very difficult to make those choices. This course is a little bit different. It has one component that is, 1 week before the beginning of fall semester abroad, but then the whole semester happens at Boise State. But they're going to be solving problems focused on the realities of Colombia. So it's an engineering course with engineering problems with a focus on another country. That's how it's going to work.
Amazing. So you guys have created this opportunity where you've basically kind of dealt with the wicked problems in terms of creating opportunities for students to get involved beyond campus while also really establishing and cultivating these international relationships with other countries and other schools. So can you tell me more, let me know more about the faces of the program?
So students, we have a course that is going to be associated with the international experience. Is an engineering course that is going to work for a technical elective. And this class is going to be offered during the autumn semester, so students can enroll right now. And we have funding for 10 students, so we will, the grant will support 10 students that will participate in this course. So right now, everybody can apply. You have to be an engineering student, obviously, because the focus of the course is engineering, but you have to also be willing to be kind of like driven and motivated to be kind of like a problem solver, in teams.
And so the important aspect is the couple of things that I just want to touch base on is one is that indeed, if you are an engineering student and you say, well, I have this internship I'm all signed up for, what am I going to do? We've really planned it so that potentially you could do this internship, come onto campus just a little bit early, get it together, or actually go directly to Columbia and actually participate. And so that's not a hindrance. So that's one thing. The second thing that I think that need to be driven is because it is going to be a student-driven class. And so we're really fortunate to have Dr. Tony Songer be the instructor of the class, a professor in construction management. And in fact, he just came back from Belize, where he runs a service learning project there. And so he has a lot of experience with really introducing students to a new place, an international experience, and working on it. I believe his course is you talk about it at first, and then you go to Belize. This one is kind of the opposite. You go to Columbia and come back and talk about it. And so we're really excited to have this opportunity available to our students.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like in terms of the curriculum, these students, they, like you mentioned, they have the week where they go to Columbia and they meet with these different companies that assign them engineering problems that are their sort of wicked problems to face. What companies does the program get involved with to kind of create this opportunity for students to engage with these problems?
Yeah. So we have one kind of like an artificial intelligence kind of company that works with customers to solve, automation problems. And that company is willing to take our students. We have another company that is in the food industry, and another company is in the dairy industry, and we have another project with kind of like public works. It's the sewage in of the city of Bogota. It's really like government.
Yeah.
Great problem, and because we went a week, we went for about a couple of days, and visited some of the companies and had the opportunity to do that and ask, what's your problem? And honestly, they have a really big biosludge problem that is, it's expected to go from 100 tons a day to 700 tons a day.
Yeah.
And so what are we going to do with this waste? And there isn't that much room. It's a very tiny country in comparison to the number of people.
Yeah.
Bogota's set to be the next big city, mega city. It's at 9 million,
Yep.
and a mega city is
Wow.
defined by 10 million. And so that's
Right on
one
the
city.
cusp.
And so you can see this really cool contrast maybe between Boise and Idaho, with a population of less than 2 million people across the whole state,
Yep.
and one city that's potentially really coming up against 10 million people.
Definitely, and these are engineering problems that they're having to face in these foreign countries, but the idea is that they can also bring back to Boise and have those implemented to kind of help our local communities and invest in ourselves on that level. So we talked about the first phase of the program, which sees students going from Boise to Columbia. Can you let me know more about the second phase of the program?
The second phase of the program is a little bit different from the first phase, where the first phase is really about, going in and get global perspectives. The other one is bringing Colombian students to Boise State and develop capacity in terms of research. So Dr. Lighty has worked really hard with the departments and the research centers at the College of Engineering in trying to find hosts for Colombian students who are doing their thesis at the bachelor's level and the master's level to come to the United States and build a network of researchers.
And so they'll be here for a whole semester.
Yeah.
They'll be here for a whole semester.
Very interesting work, and that also ties in this idea of like campus internationalism that we were talking about, which kind of creates these partnerships that are bridging opportunities for students between schools.
Yeah.
This is so amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to come interview about this. I wish that I was an engineering student now. I want to thank my producer, Kyla Edding, and my director, Nick Crone. I would also like to thank my studio manager, Bryce Cornwell, and all of the crew that helped make this a reality. Thank you for tuning in. This is Boise State in the Community, and I'm your host, Chloe Scott. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.